feelings or urges to complete suicide or considered suicide?
Yeah, I think then it starts in the prologue at 12. So what precipitated that event?
Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hi, welcome back to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Our guest is Jana Wilson. Jana is an emotional healing educator, meditation teacher, retreat leader, hypnotherapist, heart math facilitator, and founder of the Emotional Healing System. That's quite the bio already. For the past 2 decades, she has taught thousands internationally in group and private retreats. Jana trained with best-selling author and physician Deepak Chopra and New York Times best-selling author Debbie Ford. I'm excited about your bio. Anything else you want to add to it about your husband or your family now, where you live?
Well, I'm an author. That's not on there. Finally. Well, I'll be a published author in July. And I live in Santa Fe. We live off the grid. We have Tesla battery, backup batteries. We're all solar. We have a healing center here. Yeah. My husband's a physician and he's my partner as well.
Very cool. And the book that's coming out, by the time this podcast airs, it'll already be out. And I want to encourage people to go out and grab a copy. Do you want to share the title and what inspired you to write it?
Oh, sure. I'd love to. Thanks, Karen. Writing the book title is interesting when you're writing a book because you really got to get the stories out. Title is just like not even important. At some point towards the end is when the title really started. I was like, okay, I have to come up with a title. And so much of my story as you're reading, it starts, I'm 12 years old. I have this out-of-body experience based, in a traumatic event that's happening between my mom and dad. My inner child and my cultivating a connection with my emotional self, which is what the inner child is, began very young. I lived a lot in my imaginary world, of course, disassociating from the domestic violence and the things that was going on around me. And writing the book brought up a lot of that. Of course, I've spent almost 20 years teaching and before that healing myself so I could be at a place. But I don't believe we ever fully arrive. I believe that life is a journey of peeling back that never-ending onion, right? The layers. And Wise Little One came to me. Actually, I was getting a massage. She'll laugh. And it just popped in right when I was in that really relaxed state. I heard it. Wise Little One, learning to love and listen to my inner child, because that's really what catapulted me onto this path of healing was my connection to my emotional self, which is the inner child. So Wise Little One is the name of it. It is a memoir. So I'm sharing my own personal story of how my parents were conditioned, and then, of course, how they conditioned me, and then what that conditioning did so that the reader understands the journey of how our psyche is formed, how our personalities are formed, the journey of, this whole path of growth from developmental trauma to even preconscious trauma. You've read the book. So in chapter, I believe 2 or 3, I share about being in the womb. And I found this out through my hypnotherapy school training that I wrapped the cord around my neck and breached myself, attempting to commit suicide in the womb. That sounds kind of crazy, but once you understand that now we have research and knowledge that we are sentient beings, clearly, and that precognitive, I'm being fed through an umbilical cord of hormones of my mom being beaten and depressed. Of course, who wants to live, right?
Right.
So yeah, the book
And you
is,
were born with the cord actually around your neck.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now I knew that information. I had that knowledge of being breaching the cord. I just didn't know I did it
Right.
until, I was in my 30s and I went through a hypnotherapy session and saw it.
I don't know if you have words. Do you have words to describe how that impacted you to have that knowledge?
Well, it gave me a deep sense of compassion for myself, this journey that my soul, I believe, contracted for with these parents who were deeply, and let's face it, parenting doesn't come with a manual, and, we aren't taught emotional intelligence. And so my parents were extremely ignorant and unconscious and acting out their conditioning. And it just gave me compassion, like a deep compassion for little Jana, that, bless her heart. There's a part of me and that's why when I have clients or people who come to me and they've had suicide ideation, I understand, that life, it's difficult being in this human body. It's difficult in this experience. And when we don't have the necessary spiritual tools to manage ourselves, it becomes even more difficult. So it's an option that many people, entertain.
Yeah. Would it be okay if we stayed on the suicide track for a second?
Sure.
Yeah. How many times in your lifespan after, in utero, did you have thoughts and feelings or urges to complete suicide or considered suicide?
Yeah, I think it starts in the prologue at 12. So what precipitated that event at 12 years old? Well, we'd have to go back in time a little. So when I'm 8, my mom puts a shotgun to my head and my brother, and she's in a blackout. And my mom was diagnosed, she was mentally ill and she never drank, but this time she had drank with Valium, and we got taken away. And I remember starting to wet the bed. I started wetting the bed at my aunt's house while I was staying with her after my mom was taken away. And I was in a pretty dark place. So my grandmother intervened, who I was very close to, and she came and took me. So I didn't have to live with that aunt, and things got better. But as soon as mom got out of the hospital, she was in it for almost a year. And they would do electroshock treatment. The interesting thing, the gift in my mom's trauma, and my mom would attempt suicide all the time. She would slice her wrist. I would find her with a razor blade. She never cut deep enough, but she certainly, and that's why she was taken away a lot, right? Because she was behaving this way. And so when I saw that behavior modeled to me, in other words, is what I'm saying, I saw my mom attempting to check out. So that was modeled to me. Oh, that's an option.
Right.
So I don't really think about it until around 12, when I'm back with her after the gun. I'm like reunited with her around 9 years old. So it's been a few years. She allows my dad to come back. It's the battered woman syndrome. And he's beating her once again. And I'm praying for help. But right before that event, I remember feeling like I should take this bottle of aspirin. I was given or Tylenol or something. I was given something mom had given me, and I knew where it was. And I remember registering if, that could be an option if I want to just check out. So that's the only time. Then I had the out of body experience, and then I really never experienced it again. I had depressive episodes because I didn't have tools to manage my emotions, but I never wanted to completely, check out and kill myself.
You knew you had a purpose.
Right.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. The being pulled out of my body and told, those are not your parents. That is not your life. This woke me up. It was a mystical, spiritual awakening that happened so young that it completely altered my view of myself in the world after that.
Yeah.
So I was good to go. I was the first in my family to graduate high school. I was the first to go to college. I was the first to, it's like after that experience, I had a mission. And then I read a book, it changed my life, Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss. I ended up
Say that again.
Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss. I ended up training with him. He's a head of psychology at Mount Sinai Hospital in Miami Beach. That book was life-changing. It helped me reframe my childhood from a perspective that empowered me. Like, I began to look at myself, Karen, like, I am a badass soul. Or I wouldn't have chose those two parents, or I wouldn't have went through all that. Like, I must have some purpose, right?
Yeah. And it's a special person who can take their parents' limitations and see that there's a message that will help you have strength in the healer that you are today, right? Like, that's not an easy thing to see, but you see it, and you dedicated your life and your career to, being a healer. And I don't know if that's possible if you haven't had the opportunity to heal it yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can heal thyself. I started to recognize this actually later, but early in my career. So I'm in my late 30s. I've, launched a retreat business. I've trained with Debbie Ford at that point. So I'm an integrative coach. I had 3 years of training. So I was at the master level. I was, just launching my business. And I remember I had a retreat in Jupiter, Florida, where I'm from, where I lived and raised my daughter. And my mother came and cooked for us. It was like 25 ladies. And I remember having this awareness. It was like a download. You know how like it was just all came really fast. And it was like Spirit showed me the connection between my mom and myself, that as a little girl, she was having electroshock treatment for her depression. That's rewiring the brain. Now we know through neuroplasticity, we can rewire our own brain. We don't need electroshock treatment. They still do electroconvulsive therapy, and it's actually necessary. It's not inhumane. And it rewires the patient's brain. However, if they come back to the same environment, they don't have any modified change of behavior, right? They go back. But my mom would come back in an altered state. You'll read it in the book. She would be teaching me Raymond Moody, near-death experiences. We read the Bible. I mean, she was very kind of mainstream biblical. And then she would she started to download all this information, even astrology, a lot of esoteric, mystical teachings. And I was a sponge. Now, what if I didn't have that mother who lit me up at such a young age with these concepts and ideas that were absolutely mind expanding? I might not be who I am today, right? It was all a part of that contract. So I began to look at my mother through the lens, instead of the victim, mentally ill, weak woman that I thought she was, to living more in a mystery of, maybe my mom sacrificed to be here, to guide me to help so many people. That's one way of looking at her differently, right? That's more empowering than, oh, she's a victim and weak. And you remember that song, like, what if God was one of us, a slob like one of us? Like, remember?
Yes.
Like, we don't know,
Yeah. I love that reframe, And I also think it shows like how complicated we are as people. People that hurt us, we know that they've been hurt significantly themselves. And we know that it doesn't make them bad. Yeah, maybe their behavior is what we could label as bad, but there's also so much good. So it's when people are complex, our feelings about them are usually complex. Has that been your experience?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think that as you said, hurting people hurt people. And, we as one of my teachers, Ram Dass, says, we're all walking each other home. I mean, back to the heart, right? So it's like, how can I, to the degree that I've healed my own, say, anger, I can sit and be present with you and yours. If I can't be with my anger, then when you're angry, I'm of course going to project it, vilify it, and be angry, you're angry, which is a real cosmic joke. It's like, wait a minute. I'm judging you for judging me. I'm angry, you're angry.
Yes.
It's yeah.
It's hard to wrap our head around that, for sure.
But it's projection, it's shadow. And, that's one of the main things that I teach with the emotional healing system is how to see yourself in the mirror of relationship. So
before we dive into that, because I definitely want to, I'm curious about what happened to your brother over time. How is he doing? Are you comfortable with talking about him at all?
Sure.
I'm worried about him.
Yeah. Roy was abused. I wasn't by my dad. I was by my mother. Of course he was too, but Dad's fury was insane. And it really wounded my brother. He's not had the best relationships. He's been married twice and divorced, and he's in a good place now. We buried my mom last year. She had Alzheimer's, and she still remembered us though, in the end, even late stage. Like, she still knew. Wow. She would say, do you belong to me? You belong to me. Like, she knew, like there was was sweet. But I looked at the Alzheimer's reframed it, and I began to see it instead of, again, as a victim, that it was really grace, because she lived in so much turmoil from the past. She didn't remember anything. So she was just in the present moment, happy as she could be. But Roy, my brother, and I, spiritually speaking, went very opposite directions. And I talk about it in the book. He's very fundamentalist Christian, and I'm a Christian, but I'm open to all viewpoints. So I don't feel there's one way, and, so there's a big fundamental difference in our beliefs. I love my brother. Consciously speaking, though, we're in, I speak Greek and he doesn't understand it real well. So there's not a lot to talk about, right? So, but he's a good person and I love him. And, it's when you trauma bond with somebody like he and I did, that bond is really hard to break. I mean, he was my protector for many years, and I love him dearly, but he's struggled with drug addiction, and, he's doing good now though. And he has been for a while. So.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Because sometimes, the research shows us in domestic violence situations that, people think child abuse is worse than domestic violence for kids, but the research shows that kids witnessing domestic violence is very, very threatening for them, because if your protectors can't protect each other or get on a similar page, it just threatens everything for children. So you had that going on. You had the worry about your brother. You had the gun thing with your mom. Does this summarize most of your traumas, or is there even more on top of that?
Oh, there's more. You'll get to them. I don't think you're there in the story yet. So I was date raped in college. Somebody put something in my drink. I mean, when we're raised, when we have parents, as you said, that can't manage their emotions and they aren't functioning well as a healthy adult, they're arrested developed, really. Both my parents did not develop beyond stages of childhood, right? Because they didn't have the support they needed and what they needed. So now they're having children and they're teenagers. I mean, my mom was, I think, 19 when she had my brother. She was 22 when she had me. They're under the age of 25. Their brain's not developed. I mean, it was, a recipe for disaster. But they, when it puts us in survival, like you said, witnessing someone that brought you into the world trying to kill each other and tear each other apart means you might be next. And sometimes we were, Roy for sure, me not so much. I got lots of spankings though with a belt and stuff with my mom, and so that was definitely abuse as well. I think, my parents, I can't even say they did the best they could, because they didn't. They just didn't know better. They were unconscious. And like you said, I lived pretty much in survival mode and complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which makes me pretty complicated. I'm a highly sensitive person. I can't be in crowds a lot, loud noises, a lot of things upset me. I live like I do off the grid and in nature because, right, I need lots of, and of course, I'm supporting a lot of people, holding space for a lot of people to heal that have had significant traumas. And I'm not a trained clinician in the terms of traditional therapy, because frankly, I believe it works somewhat, but it's top down. It's addressing symptoms, not root cause. You go to a therapist, oh, I'm depressed. Okay, here's a pill. I'm anxious. Here's a pill. It's let's talk about it for 50 minutes, not enough time. And there's no tools given.
So I object a little bit because I'm a trauma recovery expert and a therapist, but I hear what you're saying, and that's often true. But it's more psychiatry gives meds, therapists don't prescribe meds.
But even in psychotherapy, there's not enough time, and the system isn't created. I'm also trauma-informed trained, and when we are dealing with root cause, it's different than going and to a therapist and speaking about doing all cognitive, say CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, or that's why I feel like, I think
the whole person.
Yeah, the whole person, and also going back and, through hypnotherapy or using different types of modalities to really get to the root cause of what someone, because a lot of people are operating too from emotional addiction, right? They're addicted to their story.
And cookie cutter approaches just don't work. Like, everybody's a unique individual. And I agree with what you're saying in terms of we got to look at the spiritual, moral injuries. We got to look at the body and what's happening inside, the body and the nervous system, the medical issues that come up, the mental issues that come up, treat the whole person. So I think I agree on that. Yeah. But tell me a little more about, go ahead. I want to hear more about your emotional healing system. I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, so the system is, nothing that I obviously created on my own. It's, really some of these teachings go back 6,000 years. So its foundation it's really in alignment with emotional intelligence and the skills of emotional intelligence. So the foundation of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. So the system we teach meditation. So meditation is foundational for self-awareness, because essentially all you're doing in meditation is becoming aware when you're lost in thought. And your attention is your most valuable asset. So if you're aware throughout the day when you're lost in thought because you meditated that morning and built a muscle, say, of awareness, of strengthening what you're aware of, where your mind and your attention is, becomes a superpower, because then you have free will to put it on that which you desire, right? So a lot of people, as I said, have emotional addiction, and they're addicted to stories and woe is me and victimization, and they don't even know it. They're not even aware of it, right? It's just, and so once you start to meditate, you start to go into what we call witnessing awareness. So you are the witness of what you're thinking and doing. You're so aware of what you're feeling in the midst of feeling, right? You're aware of what you're thinking in the midst of thinking, that you have mastery and you can shift your attention on what you choose at will. So that's foundational meditation. I won't work with anyone who gets into a story or complains and says they can't meditate. My opinion is, if you can't do nothing well, how do you expect to do anything well?
Mm.
When you're sitting to meditate, the benefits of meditation, Deepak always said this, and Dr. Simon. So Deepak's endocrinologist, Dr. Simon was neurologist. They both said if they were ever diagnosed with any kind of life-threatening disease or diagnosis, and they only had one thing to choose, it'd be meditation. So
That's very telling, isn't it?
yeah. So meditation is key. Balance the autonomic nervous system, activate your parasympathetic, get you in a really rest and repair, rest and digest state so you can be more resilient to stressors and, be able to manage. Then once we solidify, really it's psychospirituality. So we solidify really connection. What is spiritual guidance for you? Supporting them to learn how to pray affirmatively, to connect to a source, a power that's, gives them meaning and purpose. And a lot of people are suffering because they're in an existential crisis because they have no connection to spirit. It's like, what's that? They even confuse it with religion, right? They think it's religion, and it's not. Religion is man-made. So spirituality is, can happen in nature. It can happen, it's cultivating a relationship with something outside the five senses, right? I can't see it, taste it, touch it, hear it, or smell it, but I'm making it more real than this real world.
By faith. Mm-hmm.
So we're connecting really, you're here for a purpose, you are unique, you are lovable, you are loved, you are being supported. You're really supporting people on their spiritual journey. Once that's established, we begin moving them into understanding their psyche. And we teach psychosynthesis and shadow work, combining the two, and really helping people understand that, they are a 360-degree personality, that we have, parts therapy, parts of ourself, and that we have split off parts. I don't want to be called a bitch, say, so I split that part off. Then I'm bitchy to people at home and I'm nice to everybody and fake outside because I'm repressing that aspect of my personality. I become a doormat. I have no voice, So shadow work's really about reclaiming the lost parts of ourselves and bringing them back into wholeness. And then once people understand that, we do different practices, like we'll do mirror work. So in the mirror of relationship, say, I don't want to be, I said, weak, mentally ill, and, lost, say, like my mother. So then I would work with the client and mirror that back. You are weak, lost, and mentally ill, just like your mother. And they have to step into it, exposure therapy, around those triggers. We begin to soften the trigger when it's too intense, because I don't believe I am can be those things. I am is really a way that we speak about God. So the I am of us can't be sick, mentally ill, whatever. So sometimes we'll add it into more the psychosynthesis. Sometimes I'm this way, or there's a part of me that's this way, because I'm, got lots of parts of me. So people start to have big breakthroughs, because they're saying out loud the things they would never want said to them. Or
Right.
Yeah. It's like, whoa, they're scared of it at first, but the floodgates open. And when they do, the healing that occurs, it's like they just dumped a huge tumor that was killing them, and they're
so powerful.
Yeah, completely different after a 30-minute mirroring exercise. Then we go into reparenting, teaching steps of reparenting and how to connect with your emotions like a child. Go through certain steps. I teach step by step and asking questions and connecting to spiritual guidance, because that's a big piece of it. Really understanding, so many people operate from what I call the operating system of their childhood, right? Their conditioning. I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable. Somewhere they made a decision, a false belief about themselves. So now we're working with them to see it was a child that made that, to find the memory of what happened when they made that belief, and then go back and rescue the child through hypnotherapy, bring it back into this present moment and hear the truth that you are loved, you are lovable. What do I need to do every day to show that to myself? and create that bond, right, with self, where my internal dialogue is one that's now, I'm proud of you, you're doing a great job, and instead of what an idiot you were, I can't believe you did that, so we begin to befriend ourselves like we would a little child. And I'll tell people to take a picture of themselves, put it on your wallpaper on your phone, put it everywhere. Start to dialogue, start to think about that little child and the challenges they were going through, and open your heart like a loving parent would, and listen and learn. What is that child trying to tell you?
Wow. Wow.
That's a lot.
It's so crazy powerful, though. It's like everything that I teach and talk about and beyond, is, I talk about reparenting, I talk about that wounded child inside of us and source, and, that the spirit within us that's rooting for us and can heal us, can do anything we want, with just, faith. So what you're doing is so beautifully powerful. And I just don't understand the timeline. Like, do you do this all during a retreat? Do you have courses as well? Like, how do you do all this work? What does that look like?
So we do it in, so private work, a minimum is a week. So people will come here and stay. Private is really, it's very expensive because we don't take insurance. So you're looking at close to $10,000 for a week. But we provide everything. I mean, we're with you 6 to 8 hours a day. You also massage, body work, there's other things, shamanic healing, energy healing. So we really created an experience, equine therapy, like a whole experience, right? Sound bath, breath work, so it's a whole. Now, group retreat, we do almost very similar to the private work. However, it's a 5-day as well, Monday through Friday. We're in a resort, we're somewhere lovely and, by the beach or somewhere nice, but everybody's individual, right? If I take a group through a hypnotherapy process, I can't take notes. They have to remember and be very engaged. So groups are powerful. I mean, you can't compare them to private, though, even though it's the same content. But the book, the workbook that they get, I mean, you can see it's a lot. It's almost 70 pages. And it's, a lot of information. My husband and I are actually co-authoring the Emotional Healing System book, the guidebook now. It'll be published sometime late this year, early next year. And we have an online course. And we just recorded this online course, Karen, with the intention, people who can't, number one, because we have a foundation, a nonprofit. So we offer, I was a single mom for 7 years. So I offer private, usually full scholarship for a single mom who applies, about 3 or 4 a year I'll do. And in group, we give scholarships as well. But, still even groups, a couple grand. Private, I told you, is very expensive. So we wanted to offer this retreat in an online platform. So we just did professional recording a couple weeks ago. It's getting put up. It should be launching soon. And it'll be very affordable, like $300, and you have it for life. And it's done very well, right? So every segment.
So excited.
Yes, we're very excited about this one. Yeah.
And I think like the individual retreat price is, market, like you can't really go on a retreat and get that kind of attention for under 10,000. So, but I understand like only certain clientele maybe it'll come with that. But if you think about the long-term benefits of just going away where you're focusing on just you and your spirituality, your mental health, your physical body.
Yeah.
And do you guys do any relationship work too as well? So they're all just self with the mirror?
Yeah. So I'm trained in imago therapy, but I stopped doing couples because I always found, one wanted it more than the other. So I would end up just saying that person comes. It only takes one person to change a relationship.
Yeah.
the person who's really invested come. Then I just moved away from doing it. And the intent with the book is to reach more people, to build the groups bigger. We have a teacher training as well. So we've trained about a dozen people so far. So every time we open it up, and we've been kind of inconsistent with that, but we have another one starting probably in the fall. It'll probably start October of this year for the next cohort. But we teach people in this so that they can essentially coach people on the phone and use this model of, what we teach to people. So we're trying to reach people as many ways as possible, right? From the lowest to a book, say under $20 to, how can we share this knowledge in the best way with the highest integrity and make it affordable for everybody, and then still offer it also to people who have really need and can't afford it. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
I think you're in your husband's background.
Yeah. So
He
he's
says
a
the MD.
physician. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
an MD.
MD.
He was trained in emergency medicine. He did that for about 15 years, and then he went into the corporate side of the business. So now he runs large groups. So he's usually running a group of, 400 or 500 clinicians, doctors. So one of his things that he loves to do is healing the healers. So we do have that at our website too for clinicians. We're really trying to support. They have a very high suicide rate, a lot of addiction. They do have God complex, but they also don't feel like they can ask for help because they're the ones who always help. So it's challenging, and, working with them to get them across the line to say, I need help, I'm unhappy. And usually their unhappiness is what everybody else's is. It's a lack of spiritual connection.
Some of us were born with it. You?
Yeah.
I feel the same way about
trauma.
myself.
You do? Yeah.
Well, I can't remember where I read this or where I heard it, but it's something like survivors are more spiritually enlightened, or have the possibility of being more spiritually enlightened. And I just love that, because I think, one, our spidey senses, intuition, spirit is on higher, it's just more evolved. I think we're incredibly compassionate. And I think that's just a beautiful mix. Now, of course, there's people that have been hurt and have shut down their ability to connect with spirit. But I think if they want to change that around, there's hope for that.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it comes really to the soul that, I have a teacher who runs a shamanic institute here, and he taught me. He said, Jana, did you ever wonder why you weren't born like in places where life expectancy was maybe 40 and you were having your vulva cut out like they do in the Congo, or starving? I grew up poor, but I still had awareness that I was privileged in a lot of ways, right? Because I was American. And anyway, I said, yeah, I have thought about that a lot when I was a child, especially growing up being called trailer trash and on welfare and food stamps. And he said, well, it's because you're not an infant soul. And I'd never heard of infant soul. So I was like, oh, okay. Infants deal with survival. You already got that check. You did that. Okay. This is, of course, in the perspective of reincarnation. The soul keeps growing. It gets to baby soul. Baby souls, stranger danger. They seek others to be like them. Kind of a more fundamentalist type religious viewpoint, right? That I need you to be like me, and you're going to go to hell if you're not, and all of that. Babies. But when he told me this, Karen, I was like, oh, I never got mad anymore at my family or people. You're going to hell. You don't believe the way we do. I'm like, I immediately in my heart, I think, oh, they're a baby. Yeah. They don't know any better. Yeah. I can't be mad at them. They're trying to help me. And then the soul keeps advancing. It goes to young soul. Young souls are very interested in the material game of life. And They see others as something they need to get something from. They're young, right? America's a young soul country collectively. China, young soul country. United Emirates, Saudi, there's a lot of young souls on the planet. Young and baby souls make up the most people, he said, on the planet. Then you have mature souls that are more relationship oriented. They're growing. Their interpersonal relationship with self, with others is important. And then you get to old soul. Old souls are visionaries. They're here to make a difference in the world. As they advance, you don't see them. They're in ashrams, monasteries, nunneries, meditating, praying all day. They're checked out of the material game. So there's, all these different soul ages. So my viewpoint now is not so much that because I went through trauma, I had a deep spiritual connection to spirit. No, I never not had that connection. I remembered it because I'm an old soul. Right. It was nothing was more important to me, even as a teenager. I mean, nothing, I bet you and I could both agree on this. We're not small talkers. Go deep or go home. I don't want to talk about the weather,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Where you been all my life?
Yeah. Like, let's get down to the nitty gritty, Yeah.
Yeah. I used to work in the ER, and I would walk in and I would, greet people, but I'm like, I'm here because someone you love believes that you're planning to complete suicide or attempt. Can we talk about that, please? Let's not beat around the bush, because I'm here to try to save you if you want to be saved. And they'd be like, whoa, no one's ever said that to me like that. I'm like, yeah, I'm busy. And I'm sure you've got better things to do than staying in the ED all day. So let's talk about this, because I believe your life has purpose, but what do you think about that?
Exactly.
And it really helped disarm people so I could help them more quickly, I do want to live, but I just don't have the skills. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, okay, well, let's get you more help. There's other ways. And sometimes it's just bills. Like, some people, they just felt so overwhelmed. I'm like, oh, money is such a temporary thing. It comes, it goes, it flows. Please don't take your life over money. You could wake up tomorrow and money be flowing, and just educating people and helping them see their problems from different perspectives.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for doing that work. I'm sure that was very impactful to the people you helped.
Yeah, it was. I did a lot of learning and growing during that time. And I had a suicide attempt myself when I was, I think, 12.
Oh, okay.
And God's like, nope, you are not checking out.
Yeah. You got lots to do for me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I love it.
So people listening to us today, and they think you're the bee's knees, like you're like an answered prayer for them. What's the best way to reach out to you?
Through my website, either janawilson.com or going to the Jana Wilson, it says work with Jana, and you can click on it. It'll take you over to the Emotional Healing Retreat website. And that's the best way. We do have, when this podcast airs, we'll have already had a group retreat, but we'll have another one. So do check the website, and we'll have one a quarter somewhere in the country, or possibly somewhere else, maybe Costa Rica or somewhere else. But yeah, we're wanting in 2024 to have one every quarter. With the pandemic, we went down to one and then 2 a year. So yeah, right now we've just been doing 2. We just wrapped San Diego, and we try to do California and Florida and somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But
your website's beautiful, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd like to say to the listeners, just to, self-love. I began this journey because I knew I didn't love myself, right? Because it wasn't modeled, right, to how to love myself. My mom didn't love herself. I gave myself up to men, to anybody who would give me attention. And I was really interested in my 20s about, in psychology, I was in college, of course, taking courses and understanding how do we love ourselves. And it's so much more than a bubble bath, right? And a day at the spa. So there's 6 ways I came up that we love ourselves. One is emotionally, to emotionally like connect with ourselves, tell ourselves loving things. Physically, the food we eat, the way we move our body. Third, spiritually, do you have spiritual practice, or you daily have a devotion, something, nature, somewhere where you're really connecting to the unseen? Organizationally, children thrive in organized environments, right? We want to keep things clean and clutterless and organize ourselves. Financially, we want to make sure the lights stay on and everything's paid, and maybe we're debt free and we're taking care of ourselves, being a good steward over our finances. And last is relationships. How are you loving yourself in relationships? Because in the mirror relationship, everybody's reflecting you back to you. If I'm in a relationship with somebody who continually dismisses me, disrespects me, what does that say about me? That I must be doing that to myself. So I must be disrespecting myself, or I wouldn't allow it, right? Because birds of a feather flock together. Water seeks its own level. Like attracts like, unbeknownst to some people who say that opposites attract. Your strategies might be opposite, but you're going to attract the same person as you. If you're abusive to yourself, you're going to attract somebody who's abusive. So really,
and if you're loving and kind to yourself, you're going to attract someone loving and kind. Yeah. It took me a while to get it, but I agree with you. And now I have the most amazing spouse, but man, I kissed a lot of frogs first. That were not amazing to me. So,
They were teachers. They were showing us where we had growth.
Yeah. Well, I hate to end this because I think you have I know you have a lot of value to share with the world and the women out there that are suffering right now. So I just want to say I appreciate the work you do. It's not often I see someone that is wrapped around the whole person, spiritually, mentally, physically, and relationally. Like, it says something that you got the Mago therapy experience, because you don't unlearn what we learn, and you got the heart mouth experience and the teaching you do and the meditation you do. You just offer such a great package. You know that about yourself, right?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's what started me on this path. I was like, I know there's certain pieces, and the more I studied with this teacher, that I started to say, this is important. This is what it needs. If I could teach somebody this system, I mean, there's only 1 or 2. They could take just meditation and change their life. But if they practiced everything from the shadow work to reparenting to even envisioning, we didn't even get into that, how I teach, I was trained law of attraction, but even goes back so much deeper, how to manifest, how to begin to develop these supernatural powers based on your desires and your wants. So we kind of, it's a full, definitely a full system. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that was there just from the book and what you said about your spiritual beliefs. It's when people believe that their way of honoring God is the only way, it's very limited thinking.
Yes.
So I loved what you said. Well, I'm a Christian, but I'm open to all aspects of spirituality. I think that's just huge.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. And thank you so much for what you're doing, for having me on. I'm so appreciative, and thank you so much.
Yeah. And I'm enjoying your book. That's the wrong way to say it, I think. I'm finding your book to be powerful. And once I'm finished, I will be writing a review, and I wish you lots of success with that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.